It's been pretty much the same theme that's been carrying through the markets this week. Foreign investor appetite in particular picking up, and that boding well for the NSE, largely on the back of Safaricom. What sense are you making of the kind of movement we're seeing on the Kenyan markets at the moment?
Well, as usual, when Safaricom sneezes, the market gets a cold. So I think the thing is now Safaricom is in very good health and foreign investors are buying really heavily. We've seen out of the, say, 70% in foreign buying, about 58% is going to Safaricom alone. So that means that Safaricom is actually what is moving the market. We saw market capitalization go over the 900 billion mark, which means that we are back to October 2008 levels, which is a good thing. I think now we are looking towards results starting to come in towards the beginning of February. So a bit of attention will start to shift towards the financial sector as well.
Especially because while Safaricom is one of the major drivers at the moment, to a large extent, the optimism has been underpinned by growth prospects going forward. And yesterday we put the country's two major revenue earning sectors under the spotlight, that of course being agriculture and then tourism. But a lot of Kenya's growth is dependent on banks starting to lend again. What's your outlook in that regard, and so banks' earnings moving forward as well?
Well, I think, for example, the new agency thing that's coming from central bank is a good thing. It means we're going to see banks reaching out to more people in the country, which means, of course, more Kenyans will have access to banking services. I think banks are still a little cautious, but I believe that now that we are beginning to see some growth, usually the market reflects what is probably going to happen as we go forward on the ground, then banks will begin to lend a bit more heavily, and that will, of course, spur on the economy.
Let's put one of those banks under the spotlight today, Cooperative Bank. It's been seeing nice support of late at a time when the Central Bank of Kenya has said that the Kenyan banking sector is still reeling from escalating stock of non-performing loans. What's Cooperative Bank's status in that regard and its investment appeal at this stage?
Well, the thing with Cooperative Bank is that it is owned largely by the cooperatives, and they still have that lock-in period on the shares that they own. And the thing is that with Cooperative Bank, they do have the goodwill that they need, and that is why we saw, for example, in their IPO, they had an 80% subscription rate, which happened during the peak of the bearish period. So Cooperative does have a very good background. I think that now that the agency system is coming in, they're also very well set to use their cooperatives as outlets or as agents for the bank, which means they will probably be the ones seeing the largest reach through the agency system.
So that's just one of the banks not really feeling too much of the squeeze at a time when banks have been really pressured by non-performing loans. We know that also a very active bond market over in Kenya has been further squeezing the share of a commercial bank's syndicated loan business. I mean, what's your forecast as far as interest rates are concerned and what banks are charging in particular?
Well, that hasn't really changed over the last 1 year or so, but I do think that interest rates may go up a little bit as we go forward. This is because there'll be more demand for loans and all that. But at the same time, I think that it's right now it's really a matter of a wait and see what is going to happen to the economy, whether people will start investing more heavily, and of course naturally the banks will react to that.
Yeah, well, certainly the IMF shares that sentiment, saying that they forecast Kenya's short-term interest rates to edge higher on the back of a recovery in economic growth moving forward. But looking at the fact that we didn't see banks lowering rates in tandem with the central bank when that was implemented, do you see rates being charged by banks increasing once rates edge higher?
No, I don't think the banks will increase the rates. I think the central bank is the one to watch. The banks will probably remain where they were because they didn't actually bring their rates down. So we expect them just to hold on. I think what the Kenyan banks tend to shy away from is changing their rates due to short-term fluctuations. Mm-hmm. So I think at the moment we would be looking at them remaining where they are for the moment, and I'm sure it would really raise a lot of hell if they did raise rates now after they didn't bring them down when the central bank tried to get them to do so.
So certainly consumers will be sighing a breath of relief over there. In the meantime, we're seeing other banks getting pretty innovative. Equity Bank taking the relationship it has with Safaricom's M-Pesa service a step further, where we've seen M-Pesa customers can now access money from Equity Bank's ATMs throughout the country. Market reaction to that announcement, because certainly it bodes well not only for the M-Pesa service and Safaricom, but Equity Bank as well.
Well, right now, innovation is the secret to the Kenyan market. We've seen both Equity and Safaricom, as you say, have been doing very well because they're very innovative. And I believe that most of the investment, because, for example, the recent report coming from, I think, Morgan Stanley, was based on the focus on what Safaricom is going to do, which means that they are seeing that this is a company that's very innovative. It is actually reacting to consumer needs, and consumers are reacting to that. So I think these two joining together is actually going to be creating a behemoth at the moment.
Earlier this week, Samuel, we were talking about KCB merging its banking and mortgage subsidiary units, and actually that mortgage component of the business leveraging off the KCB branch network moving forward. We've heard news now that housing finance is positioning itself to become a leader in the property development market in Kenya. It yesterday signed a co-financing agreement with Shelter Afrique. Talk us through prospects for that company moving forward as you see it.
Well, I think there's a lot to be done in the mortgage sector in Kenya, especially in the lower end market, because the upper end is really already sorted out. I think at the moment the only big player we have is housing finance, which is linked to Equity Bank, and I think Kenya Commercial Bank is seeing that they need to get in there, being of course the biggest competitor at the moment for Equity. So I believe they're just taking their competition to another level.